Today we're gonna run for the banks. Hey Andy, what does that mean? We're gonna figure that out. Hello and welcome to another Solana tutorial. Today I want to talk about Bankrun, which is a testing framework on Solana, for Solana development. And this is not a deep dive video. This is more of a, hey, did you know this tool exists? Kind of a video. Because if somebody wouldn't have told me, then I wouldn't know that this tool exists. And it could potentially be very helpful for people. And every time I talk with the head of DevRel, he's like, have you made a video about Bankrun yet? And I'm like, no. So let's finally make that video about Bankrun. Or at least the first video about Bankrun, because who knows, maybe it's so interesting that I want to make more. But for today, just a simple intro. I mean, now you know that Bankrun exists. Great. I could stop here, right? Maybe not, because I do want to look into it myself as well. Explain a little bit what it actually is and what it's used for. I hope that I don't need to explain why you might want to test your Solana programs. I hope that we can establish up front that testing is a good thing. And I'm totally guilty myself that I do not test enough. Or at all. I'm more like, it's gonna work just fine. With the excuse that I just write small programs that are not really being efficiently used or whatever. Really, it's just me being lazy. But yeah, if you have a bigger project or develop a program that should scale and that you want to continue to develop on for a longer time, I highly recommend that you add test cases. Because tests are one of those things that have a high return on investment. Yes, it's a bit annoying to write them in the beginning, but therefore it's much easier to detect bugs because you just write the test cases once, defining what the program should do. And then every time you change something, you execute the tests. And if the tests break, you see, oh, that broke that component, and then you can fix it right away. Rather than the component being broken for a while, you don't figure it out and then have weird behavior somewhere that you then need to debug, which is, more costly. The sooner you find the mistake, and that's true in software engineering in general, the sooner you find the mistake, the cheaper it is to fix, and test cases really help with that. Now we can test without Bankrun. That's not there are regular Solana tests that use the solana-test-validator, spin up your local validator, run the tests, fine. And that's great for most smaller projects. But the cool thing about Bankrun is you don't need that local validator anymore, and you can run tests way more efficiently. That and some other cool features that we're gonna have a look at, because I also don't know them yet. But let's have a look into Bankrun. Bankrun, run to the bank, run. So, introduction to Bankrun. Kevin Heavy? Solana Bankrun. Anchor Bankrun is a powerful extension to Solana Bankrun. So there's also an addition for Anchor, but the normal Solana Bankrun, there we go. That's a nice image. I like it. I like this image. But I'm getting distracted. So Bankrun is a super fast and powerful and lightweight framework for testing Solana programs in NodeJS. NodeJS, okay. While people often use the solana-test-validator for this, Bankrun is orders of magnitude faster and far more convenient. We shall see about the convenience, not about the fastness, because I don't intend to build big things. You can also do things that are not possible with the solana-test-validator, such as jumping back and forth in time or dynamically setting account data. See, this can be super interesting. If I can just say, hey account, you now have this data. That makes it way easier to test stuff than if I would have to actually, send transactions that make the account look that certain way and then test and then tear it down again such that I can use it for the next test. Just being able to set the data could be actually super helpful for tests, huh? If you're used to the Solana program test, which we totally are, right? You'll be familiar with Bankrun, since that's what's under the hood. Okay, so it's built on Solana program test, which appears to have no README. Wonderful. For those unfamiliar, just in case that's you, Bankrun and Solana program test work by spinning up a lightweight banks server. That's like an RPC node, but much faster, and by creating a banks client to talk to the server. So essentially, we're emulating an RPC, I guess. This author thought Solana program test was a boring name, so he chose Bankrun instead. You're running Solana banks. Oh, we are running the banks. Not we're running for the banks. Well, we are literally running the banks. That makes sense. The banks being the accounts, right? Yeah. Minimal example. I love minimal examples. This example just transfers Lamberts from Alice to Bob without loading any program of its own. It uses the jest test runner, but you can use any test runner you like. So, you know, these kind of things, but we can do whatever else we want. And the Bankrun comes essentially from the context. So it gets the context, and then from the context we get the client, the payer. So the payer also comes with the context. And then we do the things as normal with the latest block hash also from the context. And then we await a client process transaction and can then do checks on that account. So that's a very trivial example here, or minimal example, as it literally says in the headline. If you have multiple test files, you should disable parallel tests using the run in band. Okay, the underlying Rust process may print a lot of logs. You can control these with Rust log by setting it to nothing. And then just run in band. Okay, looks like TypeScript, but somewhere underneath there is some Rust. So we write our tests in TypeScript, but this thing somewhere is probably executing Rust. The context object contains a banks client to talk to the bank server, a payer keeper that has been funded with a bunch of sol, and a last block hash that we can use in our transactions. And we're just emulating Solana accounts, really, right? We don't actually have blocks and transactions. Just this process transaction does the thing to our accounts as if that transaction would get executed, and the accounts have the different state then, but that's it. There is no actual validator code running. And it's probably based on the validator code because I'm assuming that does all the checks for a transaction, but we don't have a local validator. And also that means we don't have all the programs that are deployed to definite or mainnet. It's only the system program and the SBL token programs and SBL memo that are available here in this client. The rest we would need to somehow deploy ourselves, I guess, or load. But since they're all just accounts, we can load them, and then hopefully this thing will be able to just call it as normal. All it does is, run the transaction. And that's code that you can execute even if you don't have the validator running. And yeah, and we just add that by yarn add Solana Bankrun. Cool. Then we have this. Should we just try this and test a bunch of stuff? Source. So yeah, this thing is written in Rust and has a lot of dependencies on Solana program and Solana program test. Yeah, so this is actually really just a small thing. Implements for an account, conversions, process legacy transaction. That just processes those transactions. So basically those are the RPC methods, right? That we kind of simulate. Program desk context. Here, that's the thing that we get to work with then. It has the bank's client, the payer, latest block hash, a Genesis config. We can set account even. That's cool. We basically just provide the address and the account, which has those things. Lambert's data, owner executable. Pretty cool. Set account, set clock, set rent, warp to slot. Oh, that's the time changing. Yeah, because for testing, you want to say, okay, a day has passed or 30 days have passed, right? If you have like a timely unlock, then being able to change slots simply, like with just a function call, is super helpful. Then you don't have to actually wait that time or have the validator produce the slots faster or whatever. And you can potentially even go back in time, but I would need to try that. So we can go to a specific slot or to an epoch. Yeah, cool. Those are the things that we can do. And the start. So if we start, we map the programs that we get. So programs, accounts, max compute units. And then we put that in a new Bankrun. And that's what you get back. And that's probably also what they here. You probably add the programs and accounts. I was like, what's that? In this simple example, they don't add any programs and no accounts. So that stays empty. But yeah, let's actually play around with it. I always like to look at source code just so I see what's actually behind that. But we said we don't do a deep dive. We said we're just gonna do a quick little intro. So let's do a quick little intro. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be too complicated, but also seems to be quite helpful and easy to use. Especially like, because that's TypeScript. I thought it was Rust, but no, it's TypeScript. But yeah, true. We write most of the test cases in Solana in TypeScript because TypeScript is usually the client code, and we write tests in client code, not in, you know, program level, which makes sense. Yeah. We can go through deploying programs and anchor integration. Time travel. When should I use the solana-test-validator? Maybe that's for the end of the video, but let's go through this as well. So it sounds like Bankrun is great for many things, but some things you can't do with Bankrun, obviously. So let's read this. Bankrun is fast and more convenient. It's also less like a real RPC node. Solana-test-validator is still useful when you need to call RPC methods that bank server doesn't support. Well, obviously, if bank server doesn't support it, then we can't use it there, huh? Or when you want to test something that depends on real-life validator behavior. Right, because we don't have an actual validator and you want to test stuff that, you know, depends on the validator, then you might want an actual validator. But Bankrun is really good for testing program and client code. And if we're a program developer, then that's mainly what we want. We expect that validator stuff works as normal and we just want to test our program because that's what we develop. We don't do any, you know, validator code or whatever. Let Answer do that and fire Answer. In general, though, I would recommend using Bankrun wherever possible, as it will make your life much easier. Biased opinion by the inventor of this tool. But fair enough. Who doesn't have a biased opinion? Let's form our own opinion. Let's finally test this. Supported on Linux and Mac targets. Because this is what Solana program test runs on. Oh yeah, because we have the Solana program test in the background, and that's Rust. We need Rust, and that doesn't really work on Windows so well, does it? But it's fine because we can just spin up a then installation. They say just yearn add Solana Bankrun. Let's just do that. We get the node modules because again, we're in TypeScript now. And then we try to do that minimal example. I'm just gonna borrow that code just to see if that works. That doesn't work because we don't have jest. Ha! And it's already trying to help me here. Either Mocha or jest. Probably I want to yearn add jest. Jest? I don't know how to pronounce that. Does that help? Okay, let's add types for it then. There you go. There you go. No more red. I'll just for myself, just so I know I'm executing my own stuff. And then how do you run this? With jest, I think. Minimal. I think I prefer to install it with npm. I don't really trust this. But I also don't trust npm, let's be honest. I don't trust any of those, but it's fine. And now I have it. Wonderful. So jest minimal. That's not how you run it. No tests found. Solana Bankrun. Oh, maybe I need to... it matches for this. Okay. So it's a nice regex. So probably you expect them to be in a test folder. Move it to a test folder. 0 matches. So I don't know how jest works. Probably want to do this, but this doesn't really make a difference because it just doesn't find anything. It runs it in parallel, but it runs it in sequence, not in parallel. But it doesn't match TypeScript files or spec or test TypeScript. Dot test. Haha. There we go. We get a failing test. Wonderful. So we need to just call it right to match the pattern. There's a dot. Any dot, as many as I like with dots, but then exactly spec or test after the dot. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Or I need to have it in a tests folder. So either that or test __. And here I can name it whatever. Then it finds both of them. So those are the two possibilities. Or I specify another path. You know, I could tell it to have another regex for matching here. But that's jest stuff. Still don't know how to pronounce that. Not Bankrun stuff, so let's not worry with that. And see why our tests are failing. So tests 0 total, time. Cannot use import statement outside of a module. Oh, for f***'s sake, how does TypeScript work? Okay, you're a module now. Node modules follower is ignored by transformers. Great. Guess we gotta do that. Reset TypeScript. Bubble. Bubble, bubble, bubble for transforming to JavaScript. And then, same thing. I love it, aka don't love it, when I spend most of my time doing something completely different than what I actually want to look at. You want to have Bankrun, you gotta have all of that set up. Yeah, at least we are getting a different era. What if it's not a module? Man, I wanted to play with Bankrun, not with freaking tests, man. But we're getting somewhere. Cannot find module, Babel, preset, environment. Well, I guess I can just add that. Okay. And now, still bubble preset environment. Can you just yarn add that? Woohoo! We got passing tests! Just took us an hour. And what did I change here? I'm just not gonna save this, whatever I did. Oh yeah, so I don't need this as a module. Okay, cool. Wonderful! Look at that. So my minimal test seems to be working. What's happening here? Program, Solana program invoke, tests executed. So we did execute my test. Nice. Oh yeah, those are debug messages. We can get rid of them, as they said, by saying rust log is and nothing, and then run it. Then I don't get that rust log. See, like those messages. And just the my console log stuff. Okay, and we want to also run in band. I have one test, so it doesn't make a difference, but just to get used to it, to run this in serial. Okay, cool. So now that we have set it up, where we can actually use it, let's actually play with the Bankrun stuff. Because we have this start, and we can get the client, get the payer. How about, let's make the test a failing test by not adding the instruction. Then it should fail, right? There we go, one failing. The one transfer fails. We expect the received to be the expected. So the expected is this and received is 0. So yeah, it even prints us where in the code we fail. Nice. Very cool. And we don't need to spin up a local validator for that stuff. Cool. What else can we do with this? Because this is just a very, very simple example of a simple transfer with no other programs involved. What can we do that makes it more interesting? Involve other programs or accounts or something. How would I do that? Yeah, so here we see programs and accounts. So let's start with adding an account and saying that the receiver already has some lamperts. Let's say this account already has 42 million lamperts, so 0.042 sol. And then this thing needs added account. So address and info. Address is the receiver. Is that what you expect as an address? What do you expect as an address? A pub key, okay. The receiver. And the account info is probably, yeah, there we go. So data, nothing. What do you need? A uint8 array of nothing. Executable, nope. Lamperts is my initial lamperts. Owner is the system program. And rent epoch, I don't care. Okay, cool. So that's the initial account, and that initial account I put in here. And then for my test, I want the balance after to equal transferred lamperts plus initial lamperts. There we go, I need a big int here. And then, so let's do one transfer with initial. There we go, also that passes. And I could have, made a separate test for that, but I deleted my previous one, it's fine. I'm just showcasing how to write tests, I'm not writing tests. As I said, I don't really do writing tests, do I? Cool, so that works. It would not work if I had that account be executable, which on a regular validator it's really difficult to get just a regular account to have the executable flag set to true, but here I just can, and I'm assuming that the system program will complain. It will not. Well, that's weird. I can't just transfer. Of course I can transfer to a program account that is executable. Sure, the system program will do that, but it would fail if if the owner was also another account. How about that? If the owner is not the system program, then the system program needs to fail. And now I'm testing, does it actually properly simulate the transaction? No, it does not. What? Well, that's weird. Oh, because it's the receiver. Of course, the system program also doesn't care if the receiving account is owned by someone else. That's my logic error, my thinking error, sorry. System program don't care where it transfers to. It can transfer to any account. Unless we transfer to a write-protected account, like the system program itself, then it should definitely fail. There we go. And why does it fail? Instruction, change the balance of a read-only account. Okay, so that's a regular simulation. Good. Change it back to receiver. And the initial account, how can we make it such that the system program doesn't want to transfer there? No, system program transfers to anything. It might not create the account or assign it to something if it has data. So let's do the second, assign account with initial. We have initial Lamperts and the initial account. Do I always create a new start and then a new banks client? I guess so. Or do I do that once? But I want other initial accounts. So yeah, let's do it like this. And we do an assign which account, new account. And actually I want a key pair. The new account pub key, assign the new account pub key to a program. Like, let's say I had a program ID. And that should work. We're not transferring. And now we don't check for balance. We check get account, the new account pub key. And then we expect that the account after owner is equal to my pseudo program. Yeah, so we assign it. First it was owned by the system program. It already had Lamperts. That's okay. It is executable. No, first let's not make it executable. No data. And we assign that to another program. That should work. No. Missing signature. Okay, yeah, for that random pub key. That's why I got myself the key pair. True. I need to sign. The new account also needs to sign. Then it's a valid transaction. There we go. Now both of them are passing. And now if I had something like, oh, this one is already executable, then the test will fail. No, it will not. It's executable, but the system program assigns it anyway. Fine. Okay. But if it wasn't owned by the system program, but by a random pub key, then it would fail. Fail to process transaction. Instruction illegally modified the program ID of an account. Illegally! Okay, but what if it belongs to the system program, but I already had data there, just 1 byte, but it has data. Then I think the system program also doesn't allow that. There we go. Error processing instruction 0. Illegally modified the program ID of an account. Why is it now illegally doing that? Because it already has data? Is that a runtime check? No, not like this, it's okay. I wouldn't expect that error. I would expect a system program error. But that's interesting. So maybe it's a runtime check, not a system program check, which that totally makes sense, because obviously the runtime needs to check that, because a malicious program should also not be able to assign the account to someone else if that account has data. So it is a runtime level check. Yeah, that makes sense. It's not the system program that fails, it's the runtime that kills us. Because if we have data there, we shouldn't be able to assign it to someone else. That makes sense. Because otherwise that other program would think that it's its own data when really we built that data and just assigned it to that program. So for security, you can't have that. It must have all zeros. And it's okay if there's data there, as long as it all zeros. Like, it's okay if there's space allocated for the account is what I'm saying, as long as there is all zeros. Cool. Okay, so that seems to be working. I'm still a bit confused why there is no check for the executable, but see, that flag in reality can only be set by certain programs, I guess. You can't just write to that. So we don't need to check for that, I think. But okay, we can assign an already executable program. Sure, whatever. Cool. And that's how you write simple tests. We saw how we can spoof an account, like mock an account. Let's also get ourselves a program, because that's where it essentially gets really interesting. If we can, test our program, how our program behaves. And then it's super cool that we can just set the data of the program and whatever, of the program accounts and whatnot. Okay, so let's test the program. So what do you need? You take edit program, and what is that? It has a name and a program ID, which is deprecated. Program ID is just a pub key. Okay, put our pseudo program in here. And it does require me to put the name as well, even though that's deprecated. But otherwise it won't have that type. Great, deprecate this thing and then not make it optional. Oh, and then we could test so many other things like the warp and set account. Oh, we could set account as well, even after we already did some tests. So far we've just set the initial account, but then also you can just set the account like this. Oh no, you can just set the bytes of, no, account info bytes. That's also the owner and executable flag and whatnot. So we could simulate that somebody else now changed that account in another transaction or whatever, and then do more stuff on it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a nice framework for testing. Force it ahead to a new slot. We can't jump back, I think, but we can jump ahead. So I still don't know how I would put a proper program in there. An array of objects indicating which programs to deploy to the test environment. See the main Bankrun docs for more explanation how to add programs. There, deploying programs. It's a bit fussy how this is done. The program's SO file must be present in one of the following directories. If you want to pull a Solana program from mainnet, use Solana program dump. The SO file must be named SBL example logging, since SBL example logging is the name we used in programs parameter. Aha, so that's where the name is relevant again. Okay, so a bit complicated, but I guess we will make that work. So we need a program. Do we have a program? What was the last program I built? Oh, but that was an anchor program. Should just write my own program real quick. I think I'm gonna just borrow a program. I'm gonna borrow the one that does the transfer. Transfer Lamperts. So there we have a very simple program that essentially just doesn't take instruction data, has two accounts, the source and the destination, and then it literally deposits 5 Lamperts into the destination account. Wonderful. We're gonna test that program without actually deploying it anywhere. So what we need to do is we need to build this. I hope that just works. Okay, looks good. We have optimized in targets. SBL example transfer Lamperts. I think that's that one. Yep, I built that today. So we have the D and the SO. Just gonna borrow both of them. We're just gonna put them in tests. It should be called tests. Must be present in one of the following directories. Test fixtures. Just gonna make that folder, fixtures. Put it in there. What's the D file? That's not important. I can actually delete this. I don't think I need that, but the SO file, the actual bytecode, that I need to have. And then I need to have the exact name and put it here, I think. And I deploy this to my pseudo program. Well, it's actually my program ID now. Now it's not pseudo anymore. So that's my custom program. Then I'll put that custom program in here. I won't use an initial account anymore. Although I should use an initial account because it transfers 5 Lamperts. We'll first let it fail. And then all I do, my instruction is transaction instruction. That's what it's called in the old Web3.js. Transaction instruction. So we don't need no data. The program ID will be program ID. Buffer alloc 0. The keys, you need to be an array. Key, there we go. The program takes 2 things, 1, 2, the source and then the destination. So the source is my payer. Pub key is the payer. The key pair is signer true. Is writable true. And then another one with pub key receiver. Receiver again. It is not a signer, but it is writable. There we go. We have our instruction. Voila. We add that instruction and we let it fail. The interesting part is just, will it load the program? So that's what I'm really interested in now. And 1 failed, 2 passed, 3 total. And it failed. Instructions spent from a balance of an account it doesn't own. Ah, yeah. Because we're not doing a system program transfer here. We're transferring from one of our accounts. So the source info, that account needs to be owned by that program. That makes sense. Okay, let's do that. But it really seems like it loaded that program. Versus if I had a different name here, then program file data not available for this. I get that error. Did not exit 1 second after test run. So it couldn't do that thing. Fail. So yeah, that seems to work. That's cool. Okay, so we need 2 accounts. One is the receiver, one is the program account, which just gonna put another unique pub key. It doesn't matter. Can have some data, not executable. I'll give it some initial lamperts, and the owner is the program ID. So my custom program, or this SPL transfer. Then I add the program account. Then I shouldn't have that problem. Wait, no, first I also need to send from not the payer, but from the program account address to the receiver address. This still not gonna work, but we get a different error now. Namely, we should get something like insufficient funds for rent exemption. Nope, missing signature for pub key. Wow, how do I get that pub key in there? Oh, I said I signed for this. Nice unique pub key. Apparently it's just counting up the unique pub keys. This is number 5 now. Funny. Such that it's always the same. Yeah, that makes sense. It's not a random one, but it's unique. Using a counter. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, I don't want to sign for this one. It's writable, but it's not a signer. There we go. Try again. This time it fails for the reason I said. Insufficient funds for rent. Because we're just transferring 5 lamperts there. And if it has 5 lamperts there, because it didn't have anything before, then that will not work. So we need to add that with the initial lamperts as well. Here, the receiver as an account, and then it should work. Nope, still not. Oh, because my... What? Because the actual test I'm doing is actually checking if the owner changed. So if the owner afterwards is the program ID, which of course is not what I want. I want the same test as up here with the balance. So I expect that the balance after is 5 lamperts plus the initial lamperts from the receiver address. I just can't spell. I misspelled it up there. It doesn't matter. I didn't see the difference. If you saw the difference, then your brain works way better with characters than mine. I do not see the difference. It's all just a blur. Anyway, now hopefully we have 3 passing tests. Woohoo! Nice. And that's how you use Bankrun to also mock your programs. Just like this. You just need to give it a program ID and then have the SO file, and then you can read that and then execute your own programs in there. And that's way more efficient than spinning up the test validator, deploying it there with all those transactions. You know, as soon as you change something, you also gotta redeploy it and bump all of the transactions. You know, it's just so much effort to do that. Whereas with Bankrun, just process the transaction like this, and then you can check balances. You can get the account info, block heights. We didn't look at the clock and rent yet. We can warp to a different slot. We can try process transaction. If this one fails, an error is not raised, but we get a result. So we can check that something should fail. So we can do something like should fail. For instance, if we here have initial lamperts 0, then this one will fail. Let's run it. The fourth test will fail. There we go. But we want it to fail. So instead of saying process this transaction, we say try process this transaction and get me the result. And then with return message, log message. Do I get the error somehow? An error info. I wish that was better typed. It's a string or null. I wish I could easily check if it's an error. And I would expect insufficient funds for rent. I mean, this is a long shot if that works. Let's try. Yeah. Nice. So this seems to actually get me the string, and then that string contains insufficient funds for rent. Whereas if we do have some starting balance here, I don't know, a few lamperts, then it shouldn't give me the error. And then this one is failing because we received null, there is no error, and then that fails. Cool. So put it back to 0. Then this test also passes. Wonderful. I mean, not the cleanest way to test on errors, must admit. What we could have also done is check that the balance after actually equals the initial balance. So the balance did not change because oh no, it does change. Oh, wait. The balance after is 0. Oh yeah, the initial balance of this one though, which is also 0. Initial program account lamperts, receiver account lamperts. That's the initial receiver account lamperts. So there we go. Then that should also pass. Again, not the cleanest with this. I kind of don't like it. I wish there was a better way to get like errors in like a properly typed errors and stuff. I don't like testing on strings because if they change the error message, it will fail again. But yeah, but you get the idea. That's one way how we could, you know, test that something is not. I could test that there is an error, that it's not null. I could expect that it's not null, and then I can expect that the balance is still the same as before, and then I'm also saying, okay, it worked, or the transaction didn't go through, it's fine. Yeah, cool. And I think that's enough. There is still more things that we could have a look at, like the anchor integration and, you know, changing, you know, time. But since we're not working with the clock, I would need to have another program to properly play with this. But I think you get the idea, and it's not like that's difficult to work with. We kind of did that. And if we want to set accounts after the start, we can say context set account. We could even copy from live environment, and there's examples for that. But I leave that for you as homework, because as I said, it's just gonna be a did you know that Bankrun exists kind of a video. So now you know that Bankrun exists. Wonderful. Isn't that great? And I hope that you will play around with it, write your tests. Do write tests, please. If you write Solana programs, write tests as well. I should listen to my own advice. And yeah, with Bankrun, super easy, super quick to set it up as soon as you have that testing framework set up. But it's just getting used to it. I've never worked with it before, so it took me a while. But yeah, that's how we can easily mock a validator, essentially. Mock the Solana accounts. That's all it's doing, you know. It gives us Solana state without running a validator. And it gives us the programs that we execute on it as well. It's pretty cool, actually. And we could load in other programs from mainnet or wherever. But that might be a topic for future video. Let me know if you want to see it. Check out other videos. Like and subscribe as always. Yes, always subscribe. And if you can't, unsubscribe and then subscribe again. Or just don't, that has the same result. But yeah, I do appreciate a like, and I do appreciate you watching my videos. So thank you for that. And I'll see you in the next one. Cool. Signing off. Bye-bye. Test your programs with Bankrun or with a regular Solana program test. If that's sufficient, then that's fine with me as well. Just saying Bankrun could help you run your tests even faster if you have a bunch of them.